Good morning, Raptor Freaks. Lexiot's here. It's 9:30, and today we are doing a Thursday think tank on who could be possibly the next starting point guard for the Toronto Raptors. With Fred VanVleet's departure to Houston this offseason, it leaves a new position open for somebody to come and take that job. But in some ways, it's not totally clear who will take it. In fact, there may be a very even kind of race for that point guard spot between quite a few different people. I have five candidates at least on my list of who could possibly be the starting point guard for the Raptors by the end of the season. It's going to be something where it could be the starting point guard at the beginning of the season, somebody, in the middle of the season, somebody, and then at the end of the season, it's somebody. And it could very well morph and change depending on how things go. Good morning to Canadian Dana. Good morning, everyone. I am Canadian. Yes, Dana, good to see you. Nako is saying, I think we need to do some trial and error. I think you're exactly right, Gerald. I think it's going to be kind of like something where Darko tries a couple things, and it could even be matchup based to a degree. Also, he may very well have like three different point guard looks to start the game, depending on the other team's point guard or the other team's makeup as a team. That it may be smarter to go big and have Scottie start at point guard and use the smaller guys as backups like Schroder and Flynn and the rest of them. So it could very well be matchup based sometimes. I don't know if he's going to have a set lineup. Nick Nurse was so rigid with his starters for the last few years. It really was only injury that made him deviate from starting the exact same starting lineup over and over again. He would have started them if they'd been healthy every single game, and wouldn't have changed. It would have been just the same guys all the time. Well, maybe in some ways, if we look at like the Grizzlies, I know they've had injuries and different issues in the last couple of years, that they've had different people come in and start. And, Tyus Jones would get starts pretty regularly, even though he's kind of their backup point guard. So I don't know if that really can teach us anything about what to expect with our lineup. It was what the Grizzlies did, because in some ways, the Grizzlies personnel is very different than ours. And also, it's Taylor Jenkins once again. I keep saying Darko what he did in Memphis, but it really is he's the assistant coach, and Jenkins is the head coach, and he is ultimately the final decider. So we don't know actually what the personal touches of Coach Rajakovic will be as far as his proclivities and what he favors in some ways. So it's going to be very interesting to see. I think Nako's exactly right, though. It'll be a trial and error thing, and it'll be kind of like, all right, let's try this first. Let's try this first. In some ways, it's smart for a coach to kind of go along the lines of seniority, whether it's seniority with the team, as far as in some ways, Malachi Flynn is the next to the throne. If you really go by the way, our team's been going the last few years, and the whole grooming of him to become the next point guard under Fred, in some ways, it really does make a lot of sense that Malachi should get one of the first shots at being the starting point guard, because he's the most familiar in some ways with our systems or what we were doing and our players on our team already, because he's been a teammate of a lot of them for 3-4 years already. So 3 years, right? 3 years, yeah. But he's been teammate of a lot of them, and he really knew how to run our system. And there's some confidence in having Malachi be that incumbent starter, just because of kind of he's been around. And if we're going to miss Kyle and Fred now that Fred's gone, Malachi may be the only chance to keep some of the Fred and Kyle stuff, because he was their understudy for the last 3 years. And he probably knows more of what Kyle and Fred taught him than anybody else on our roster right now, because he really was that designated point guard understudy. So, I said this a couple of years now, that when Fred leaves, we're going to feel it, because it's going to feel like losing Kyle at the same time. And I feel like that's going to be true this year. Like in some ways, Kyle Lowry leaving our team to go to Miami didn't get felt as hard as it would have, because Fred VanVleet was around still. And now that Fred's gone, well, we're going to feel that. And we may even feel some of the Lowry absence even deeper now without Fred on the team also. Now, can Malachi fill those shoes to a certain degree and be that guy he's supposed to be? This is why they were spending all that time with him and making him the apprentice to Fred and Kyle. Well, let's see how much he learned and let's see how much he can actually apply to it. And in some ways, he's the incumbent and should get the first crack at it. But in some ways, he shouldn't because he may not be the best capable person and he may still just have to be the backup point guard. That's the thing. We're going to have to figure this out. Nako's saying, I'm probably going to go Scottie at point guard. Gary is shooting guard. OG at small forward. Pascal power forward. And Jakob at center. And Nameless is saying, that's my exact starting 5-2. Nako the Nacho. All right, Nachito. That is a lineup that would make a lot of sense because it has a lot of continuity from the last few years. These guys are definitely used to playing with each other than Jakob just showing up near the end of the season and him not totally being fully with them. But that's really that may be our best starting lineup that Nako has just said there. But a lot of this is contingent on Scottie Barnes playing sound, turnover-free point guard. That's the thing. Scottie is probably the most talented person to be our point guard. Probably the most overpowering idea is to have Scott be our starting point guard. And in some ways, I hope this is what happens. It'd be great if Scott could show up day one this year. And Darko's like, Scottie, you're the point guard. And you're just going to run everything and do everything. And, we trust you and all this stuff. But we don't know if this is what's going to happen. The illusions this offseason are that Scottie's working on his defense heavy. He's probably working on his three-point shot heavy. And, it may not be that he's trying to orient his season to being a point guard like he did last year. In some ways, they were setting it up at the beginning of the year for Fred to be the two guard and Scott to be the point guard, but it all fell apart really early in the season. Will this take easier this season as far as Scottie and his experiments at the one? I don't know. It's a year of experience. It's a year of learning and making mistakes. And maybe he understands what got screwed up at the beginning of the season last year as far as him being our starting point guard. And he can maybe get on that surfboard and ride it a little longer, more capably, more efficiently, and be a very good choice. With this lineup that Nako's proposing here, this could very well happen. I do really kind of hope it happens because in some ways that means we're getting the best talented team out there. Because in a lot of ways, after Scott, the other point guard choices are not like these all-around great players like OG and Pascal and Scottie. They each have their limits. Otherwise, the four other candidates, Dennis, Malachi, Markquis, and Jeff. So it's a little tough to kind of like we'll have to see where Scott is as far as with his development and his going into his third year as an NBA player. So we'll have to see. Isaac's saying Scottie Barnes still rules. That's right. SB4 still rules. We'll have to see if he'll get to rule things as the starting point guard. This may be one of the trials and errors. And hopefully not too much error where it makes sense and it adds up to winning basketball. Scott, if you're going to be the point guard, you're really going to have to watch your turnovers to assist ratio. You're going to have to see if you can get that assist way higher than turnovers because that's really the point guard stat. If you can have a very good turnover to assist ratio, then, I'll like you being the point guard. But if there's way too many casual bad passes, not connecting with other guys, well, we need somebody who's going to get that ball to people for sure and get it in their hands and make sure they're getting scores. The veteran leadership of Dennis Schroder coming from playoff teams like the Lakers last year and other teams in his history of playing is very attractive in this situation. In some ways, Schroder is the most vet and smart point guard on our roster at this point. And in some ways, he may get the first crack, especially with his relationship with Darko from Oklahoma City. There's a trust there already. There's an ability for Dennis to maybe help Rajakovic implement his coaching system easier because he may understand it better and be able to do it right away because of their familiarity. There's a real strength in some ways to letting Dennis start. In some ways, he's not totally an offensive-minded player. this is going to be good for our team because there's a lot of hungry mouths to feed with burgeoning great new young talents that can score more for us, like Scotty and OG. Dennis won't be taking as much of the pie as Fred did for sure. And he definitely will be kind of like looking for people. And, this is the thing. They could start Scotty with Dennis and still play Scotty at point guard. And Dennis can be just like a safety around just in case Scotty's kind of floundering and not doing as well with the passing and the point guard duties. Well, Dennis can switch in all of a sudden quickly and help out. There was some of this talked about on Jake's takes this week. Jake having Alvin Williams on his show this week. Fantastic interview by Jake. Jake is just killing it. He gets so many good guests on his show, and he got Boogie this week. And it's really interesting. They were talking about this point guard situation to a degree. And Jake straight up asked Alvin, what do you think the Raptors are going to do at point guard this year? And he said, well, they could go a lot of different routes. It's really going to be up to Coach Darko and what he values and what he wants to do with his system. But he described a couple things. He described, well, you can start Schroder and just let him play point guard. Or you could start Schroder at shooting guard and let Scotty be the point guard. Now, in some ways, people say, well, if Scotty's going to be playing point guard, why not have Schroder just come off the bench and let Gary start at shooting guard? Yeah, that makes sense. Now, I wouldn't be against that. That's Nako's idea. But in some ways, having Scott have a safety net of having Schroder out there with him at the same time is kind of in some ways helpful. So Alvin has no idea. He said he can't make any kind of predictions about what Darko is going to do with this team, roster-wise and lineup-wise, because he has no idea. He's like once again, he said, I talked to some friends from Memphis that know Darko, and they say good things about him, people that have coached with him. Randy Foy, in particular, was who he mentioned from Villanova, his friend from Villanova who played closely with Kyle Lowry when he was at Villanova. Well, he has worked with Darko closely, Randy Foy, and he was given the 411 to Alvin Williams on him and saying he's just a really good guy and he's a great coach and everybody likes him. So it makes you want to fight for people. And Alvin also said in his interview with Jake that Darko's making personal connections with the Raptors right now, and that goes a long way. This may be a huge difference between Nick Nurse and Darko. Is Nick may be just basketball, and in some ways it's hard for him to connect with the players outside of the game because he may have wanted to keep that coach's atmosphere around him, that aura of like, I'm your coach, respect me, and maybe even fear me a little. Well, Darko's approach is a lot different. It's like it's not based on fear, it's based on love. And it's kind of like, I want you to know that I love you and I want to know more about your life. And that another thing that Alvin said is that Darko specially personalizes each relationship with each guy because he learns what makes them tick. So in some ways, he may talk to Chris Boucher in a totally different way than he may talk to Precious or he may talk to Scotty. And it's really on that personality basis of each one. So he's reading each guy and understanding what matters to them. And he's personalizing each relationship with each Raptor in a specific way. Now, it's really important to Darko that he gets across to his players that he cares about them as human beings and wants to know more about them as people. And as Alvin said, when I had a coach like that, when I played, I wanted to run through the wall for them. So let's see if the effort's different this year, partly because Darko has personal interest in our players at a different level than Nick did. And that'll be very interesting to see. Trevor J's here. Good morning, Raptors family. Good morning to you, Trevor J, platform artist. Check him out on Facebook. And Trevor, I hope you're having safe travels and happy smiles wherever you go, my good friend Trevor. Randolph Phillips is here. Good morning, beloved Raptor Freaks, most informative gang. It is a blessing to be among the living this morning. So be grateful and be a blessing to someone else. Don't waste this opportunity. Fantastic words of wisdom from Randolph Phillips this morning, and blessings back to Randolph and all the Raptor Freaks in his family and his life and all the other people around him too that are just, this is great. I love this. So it really is true. You used to do the old prayers like, now I lay me down to sleep. I pray the Lord my soul to keep. Some people go to bed at night and I hope I wake up the next day. That is something that is like one of the very basic places where you can find gratitude very easily. I don't care who you are. If you're alive and you get up in the morning, you're alive. Well, you should show gratitude for it, because some people did not wake up this morning and they are not alive. And that is a very, like, something just very basic. I don't care how poor or rotten your life is. Just having basic life is a very good starting point for having practice gratitude. Is like, okay, I'm alive, thank God. In some ways that's a start right there, and you can build the blessings from that, and recognizing, well, thank God I still have my eyesight, thank God I still can do this, or I can do that. You got a lot you can be grateful for on any given day. You just got to look for it, and then boom, your blessings just multiply. After you're grateful for one little thing, more comes. And I also like that Randolph saying, go out and be a blessing to someone else. There's so many people out there trying to screw people over, con them, make money off of them in stupid ways. Why not do the opposite? Why not do something selfless? Why not do something that doesn't benefit you at all, but is an amazing help for somebody else? There's so many opportunities out there if you just look for them, and just walk around and just say, you know what, how can I be of service to my fellow human beings? And maybe something will come to you in front of you. It could very well be you have a neighbor that needs help with something all of a sudden. It could very well be you see somebody in trouble and you're able to be there for them in a big way, so that they are helped, they're safe, or maybe they're like, that really helped me, sir. Thank you. Oh my gosh, thank you. Do that. Go above and beyond and be selfless and do something for someone else. Even if you don't know them or they can't do anything for you. That is really what it is right there. So good to see you, Randolph. So good to see him. Nameless, good to see you in the chat. Let's see. G saying, my worry with Scottie is his handle. Can he break down defense and dribble out of doubles? Not sure how he reacts when they game plan around him as the point guard. A good crafty handle for me is key as a point guard. He does have some interesting handles, but this is a very good concern, G. I would agree with this. In some ways, his height is an plus, an advantage. But in some ways, it can also be a problem. This is a big difference between Markquis Nowell and Scottie Barnes. It's really hard to steal the ball from Markquis because he's so low to the ground. There's not a lot of room where he's dribbling, and guys can just kind of swoop in because he's keeping real low. Because he can get real low at 5'7", and Scott at almost 6'10", it's really hard for him to get as low as Markquis, a foot taller. In some ways, little guys like Markquis can come in and just swoop the ball from Scott. This is true. This is a concern about the big point guards. To be a good big point guard, you really do have to have good handles like a Magic Johnson or a Penny Hardaway, and be able to protect that ball from people that may kind of try and come and swoop. So this is an area where Scott has to have experience in knowing, well, this may be how they trap me, or this is when I need to read that the double team is coming and I need to get the ball to somebody else really quickly. There's different ways he can prevent problems that G's describing in his comment, but we'll have to see if he's on it. It's an acumen thing. It's an experience thing. It's an instinct thing. And he's got it. It's just he's going to have to read NBA courts very seriously about this to prevent any stupid turnovers just from getting trapped. This is a concern I have also about this, that in some ways, this is something that could make it really hard for him to be a starting point guard in the league. And it may be better that he's a point forward. In some ways, he doesn't have to bring the ball up the court. I'd much rather Dennis or Malachi or Markquis or Jeff bring the ball up the court, and Scottie can kind of play like a high post Marc Gasol kind of passer thing. In some ways he might be just like standing at the top. Maybe Jakob's doing it alternate plays or something like that. And in some ways he's still the passer, and he's still a really important general on the court, Scottie. But he may not have that duty to bring the ball up the court in some ways. I don't know. It's really going to be what Darko sees, what he wants them to do. But I have this concern too, G, about Scott's dribble. I know he has some really good handle, and it's not that Scottie's not a good dribbler, and he can't do between the legs and do little crossovers and try hezies. It's more that he's got to learn the experience of the NBA and how they're going to come at him and what angles, and be how they may try and trap him. And then also they may come up behind him also. It's that kind of stuff I'm worried about. Trevor's saying some of us live our life just being just being our life of being just so what? Some of us live our life of being just shit disturbers. I think that's what he means. He says some of us just live our lives as shit disturbers. Ooh, yeah, there are people like that. Some of them work at ESPN. That's what I've learned this week. Tom Duke saying, good morning. 100% it will be a fluid lineup. Even the rotation will change. I do like the probable lineups, especially if we get another capable player. I don't know how he's going to do this. I mean, in some ways, we want to get some continuity so people can know their roles. If it's too fluid, Tom, I would be worried that we may get some of the same problems we had last year with the ambiguity of roles. In some ways, I really do want these guys to know this is your job, Chris Boucher. Chris knows his job real well, independent of all the madness and chaos of the Raptors. Chris really figured out his own role because he made it personal for himself. Offensive rebounds, threes here and there, and energy up and down the court. And then really, really good defense. That's the one thing that unlocked him for Nick, was that Chris gave such an amazing effort on defense the last couple of years and improved in that area immensely. And that kept him on the court more. It's like if Chris was not working on defense and not giving good energy, well, he didn't play. And that's what we need. These guys need to know their roles so that they can come in night out and kind of know what they're supposed to be doing. Last year, it was too ambiguous. So I don't know how fluid it should be, Tom. I don't know how fluid it should be. Maybe in the beginning, it's very rigid. This is what we're doing. But then later, it develops some more fluidity later on. But who knows? We'll have to see. G saying, I would like to see Dennis as the point guard, OG as the shooting guard, Pascal and Scottie as the forwards, and Jakob as the center. Scottie and Pascal can still bring the ball down during the game, too, until Scottie's fully ready. Yeah. I mean, Siakam should not be discounted in this stream today either. He's kind of the sixth option. In some ways, we could just say Siakam has more experience with the ball and being safe with it as a point forward. He could be on that list of the ball handlers and the people who are kind of in charge of this. In some ways, the point guard doesn't even matter anymore. A lot of these guys at other positions are handling the ball and bringing it up the court. And the point guard in some ways could be more like Dennis is mold of being like a really defensive pest kind of guy, but he's not necessarily relied on to be like the traditional, I bring the ball up the court and kind of stand at the top of the key and kind of look for people to pass it to get assists. The point guard could just be like a defensive specialty spot with somebody like Schroder around where he just hounds people and he's just a terror. He's just annoying. He's all over the place. He's not worried about hitting people, but he will if he has to because he has that in his bag. He's more worried about just being an absolute terror and annoying the hell out of the other team defensively. There's different roles that one can take. That since we have Siakam and Barnes, that one does not have to be the ball handler. That one does not have to be the passer. That one can be a couple different other roles. Now, Malachi, he's not totally shown his offensive assist kind of stuff, like playmaking. He has it, and he can do it. Trust me, he is a real point guard, and he does have good passing. But in some ways, it benefits Malachi to play more as a shooting guard one, because him taking more shots and kind of putting big threes up for us, that could be very helpful for us. But he may not be the best shooter, best passer when he's on the court with Scottie. That Scottie may be the better passer, and that Malachi's getting the pass. So in some ways, we've got to allow for non-traditional point guards to be playing for our team. Dennis, a very defensive-minded point guard that may not do as so much on offense for us, except for maybe hit big clutch shots or set up other guys. And then, Malachi maybe being more of a 2 than a 1 at the 1 still with his height. And then the whole factor of Nowell on this team makes the whole picture even more competitive. If Markquis Nowell is absolutely terrific with his assist to turnover ratio and just showing really good aptitude with court vision, protecting the ball, the dribbling, clutch factor with his shot, some of the stuff we saw at Summer League, he's going to make it really hard for Darko to ignore him and not utilize him on the main roster. And he could have a factor in this point guard race by the end of the year. I do not expect him to be the starting point guard at the beginning of the season, but things could morph and change depending on his progress over the course of the year, where Nowell all of a sudden is getting either backup point guard minutes in the rotation or just straight up sometimes starting at point guard. I don't think this is totally likely because, first of all, he's going to have to show absolute brilliant progress immediately and quickly. And then, second, the height is still going to be a problem at the main roster starting level. That in some ways he's not going to be able to be a starting point guard in the NBA, at least until he's proven commodity and how consistent he can be at that height. It could be very well the stair steps are very similar for Markquis as it was for Fred before him. That he's got to play a very heavy 905 year this year, play another not heavy 905 year, and then maybe he's the backup point guard in his third year with the Raptors. We'll have to see how quickly it happens for Markquis. I wouldn't count him out. And, there is an off chance that by the end of the season, he is one of our top 2 point guards, our backup, and maybe even our starter. I doubt it, though. I think the odds for him to make starter of the Raptors by the end of the season are very, very long. And it's more likely he may carve out a spot as a backup point guard off the bench at some point in there. Now, we haven't even brought up Jeffrey Dowtin. Now, Jeff is not officially on the Raptors right now. He has not got a contract, and he's kind of in limbo. So there's a lot of questions about even just his presence being on the team next year. I think it's pretty for sure. We talked about this a lot in the last couple of days, that Jeff is all signs point that why would he be here? He just did his surgery. He's been doing all the Raptors activities. He's around. He should be signed. In some ways, he's the most safe person to put in the starting lineup. I know this sounds crazy, but he is. He's the most consistent, just on the line, just do everything right and very few mistakes kind of guy. Now, if we put Schroder out there and he's just not meshing with the Raptors, like in some ways he's just not connecting to the guys. Maybe he doesn't fit exactly right. We kind of let him out there. Malachi comes out. It's not working with Malachi because he's not finding the other guys enough. He's shooting too much, and it's just not the right fit for the point guard. Well, trying Jeff could be a very safe decision because no matter what, Jeff's going to be a good point guard for us. In some ways, he's the safety net around everything. If Schroder doesn't work in some ways, Flynn doesn't work in some ways, well, Jeff will work for sure. Just because he's so fundamentally good and so consistent, and he's just that kind of player. And in some ways, he's like our safety net for point guard this year. In some ways, does that make sense what I'm saying? Because he'll just be consistent, and it may be not the most stellar, talented play, but it will be consistently good and usually very mistake-free. So in some ways, I like that. It may not be the most talented, like flashy stuff, but he's going to do it okay, and it's by the book, and it'll keep us going in the right direction with not a lot of mistakes. That's Jeff to me. So we'll have to see. We'll have to see how it goes. So kind of going over all the options there. Fiercey is here. Good morning, fam, and happy Thursday. I think Malachi should definitely be given a chance for the first month or so. If it doesn't pan out, Dowtin or Schroder. Yeah, I think Malachi deserves it. I mean, he's been the incumbent for a few years. When Fred went down, Malachi was the starting point guard. And he did fine. He was consistent. In fact, when he got a lot of minutes and he started, we could actually see where he's a good NBA player. He'd get a good amount of points, and he was getting assists here and there, and his defense was solid. So I kind of with you on this. I mean, I don't know what order Darko's going to do this, whether he goes with the big lineup that Nako said with Gary starting with Scottie at point, or Dennis is going to get his shot first just because of their familiarity. But in some ways, it's Malachi's job to first try and take just because of how much he's the apprentice. He's the incumbent. He's the guy who came in next after Fred the last couple years. So I agree with this. I think Malachi should get his good shot. I don't know if he's going to try them out. Maybe he does some of this in summer league. I mean, not summer league, in training camp. in preseason. Or I don't know. We'll have to see. We'll have to see. Maybe he just very much looks at Malachi as a backup point guard still. It may be that some ways Malachi has had leaps in his game, and all of a sudden he's even better this year, and it makes sense that he should be starting. I don't know. We'll have to see. Infamous is here. Salute, freaks. I think we should go after Dosunmu. The potential is through the roof. Yeah, he's a good, talented young player. And I am hearing the rumors. They're out there that the Raptors are interested in him. At least that's what I'm hearing. In some ways, I'm still kind of like, no. If Bobby and Masai think it's the right move, they'll make it, and he'll be in a Raptors jersey. But once again, I'm not lusting after anybody who's not currently on the Raptors right now. And Io's great, and I'm glad he's on Chicago with DeMar. But if we get him, I wouldn't be upset about that. I'm hearing that they're not going to be able to keep him for some reason. That's really weird. Like, why would you invest so much in a great young man like him and let him go like this, Chicago? Like, this doesn't make any sense. This is what I'm telling y'all. There's a lot of like weird brain drain around the league, and Oklahoma City Thunder are the perfect example of this. Yesterday, I posted something in the Raptor Freak Facebook chat that the Thunder have to cut 6 of their 21 players by a certain time this week. Well, they cut Rudy Gay last night as one of the first ones. And it's insane, the list that's on there. This is what I'm saying. You can't keep everybody, Thunder. You're going to have to cut really good players because of your insane team building and your idiocy. It's like so much waste. That's why I don't like what they're doing. We are not wasteful. In fact, we're very smart with every little resource and thing the Raptors have in their franchise. We make use of every little bit of it. Meanwhile, the Oklahoma City Thunder are full of waste. It's like, oh, we're going to draft 6 guys, 7 guys every year, and we're going to have to cut 3 of them after the next year, every single year. Yeah, it's going to happen all the time. And meanwhile, all the GMs around the league are waiting to see Oklahoma City make these cuts and come and scoop up really talented guys for nothing from the discount bargain bin. Yeah, Oklahoma City, you tell me you're doing good. In some ways, you have not consolidated your talent, and you have a talent drain because you can't keep everyone. So yeah, that I would never do that. I'd much rather consolidate into super really good players like OG and Scotty than have like 5 rookies that are all trying out at the same time. Consolidate that talent and those picks to get one good guy instead of having 5 good guys, and you have to cut 4 of them. Yeah, Oklahoma City, you have a stupid plan. Let's just put it that way. It's really dumb. And you're getting your waste already. Yeah, you got cut Rudy Gay last night. And I'm not surprised. They're going to cut some more people very soon. Very, very soon. Let's see. Cool Cat's here. Good morning, Raptor Freak crew. I feel this year is a wake-up call for the youngins about how serious it is. Ooh, interesting. The youngins on the team. Let's see. It jumped. They realized that Fred Pascal was trying to teach them and regret the outcomes. Fred Pascal moving on. Pascal's not moving on. Don't say that, Cool Cat. I really hope that doesn't happen. If there's anything about Siakam going anywhere, I'll be shocked. Seriously. Listen, are you talking about the youngins in our fan nation, or are you talking about just the youngins on the team? This is a serious business. The NBA is serious, and it shouldn't be trifled with. Some of these youngsters have a weird idea about what the NBA is and what you're supposed to be doing in it. They don't connect with the real what you're supposed to do in the NBA, and they never become good pros because they don't take it serious enough. Well, that's what part of this learning process of becoming a pro is. You got to learn the levels of how serious you got to take it to win in that league. And if you're not taking it serious, you're casual, well, you're not going to get as far. In fact, some teams may be like, we want as little casual kind of players on our team because they're going to drag us down and we're not going to get to Larry O'Brien. If we have too many of these guys are kind of aloof and flaky and not really like true pros, like the old school kind of pros. There's a lot of people that have predict or say that they look at the league and they're saying like, 60% of these guys care. And then the other 40% don't. They're there for all the wrong reasons. That's a huge percentage that aren't there for the right reason. Whether they're there just to make the bag or to be seen or to be famous or to live that NBA life, but they're not there to be a pro and work hard like pros do, not stay out of trouble, not do all this different other stuff. They don't take their job, their career in the NBA serious enough. That's the difference. You can be on a sliding scale with Kobe and Michael. Those guys are the epitome of working hard and being so cutthroat competitive. And then you can go all the way down to the other end where somebody who's just really super casual and he doesn't give a fuck. In fact, it's his birthday today. Happy 27th birthday, Ben Simmons. That's what I'm saying. There's a sliding scale to this. Some people are really dedicated and care, and some people are just kind of like, I'm just here. Bumps on the log, just kind of living through life. And they're not really taking advantage of their NBA career in the right way. So, yeah, there's going to be some tough lessons for young players in the league about whether you want to be really good or not. Do you want to? Well, you better take this being a professional in the NBA very seriously. And, the young players that do this will excel and do really well. People like Anthony Edwards. The other people, they don't ever get it. Well, they won't go anywhere. They won't win. They won't do anything, even if they're supremely talented. That doesn't matter. If you don't care enough, the guy who's not as talented as you, he cares more than you, he will win. He will win. I don't care how talented you are. You coast, you don't try as hard as somebody else. They try harder, they'll beat you. They will beat you. Yeah, I want the wake-up call for the fan nation more than the players. I feel like the players in some ways understand what you're trying to describe, Cool Cat. It's really the fans on our Raptors Nation that need to understand some of this. Seriously. Nameless is saying, bro, I had to refresh the stream so it started. Was waiting for like 10 minutes before I figured out, oh no, Nameless, I don't like hearing that. Well, you're here now. It's good to see. Tom Duca's got a frazzled head with a TV and a clock and YouTube and a and he's I guess he's putting Nameless's experiment in there, and then he's an old man and a farmer. Looks like 4 old men and 6 farmers. Okay, 4 old men and 6 farmers. Hilarious. I love it. Okay, you guys and your emoticons. Nako's saying if we get Io, I start him. See, I don't even know if that's the right decision. See, in some ways, Io just comes into a situation that's already kind of log jammed. I mean, I just talked about 6 possibilities on the existing Raptors roster without Io even being in the mix. So in some ways, I don't want to make this even more complicated and more like competitive. Does that make sense? In some ways, we don't want so many guys going like this. I don't see the need to get Dosunmu right now. If we were trading him for one of those other guys, like saying they want to trade him for Malachi, okay, that would be different. But if it's just straight up acquiring Io, I'm not interested in that because there's already a muddled field of candidates for the point guard starting for the Raptors. And in some ways, he just complicates things and makes it even more kind of like, I have no idea what the Raptors should do. They're all kind of in some ways similar levels, not really, but kind of. Dennis is not on the same level as those other guys. He's much better than them. He's proven. He's been in the league for 10 years. He's played at the highest levels. He's played with some of the best players in the entire league, like some of the greatest, like LeBron. So in some ways, Schroder should not be looked at as kind of like, in some ways, he's equal to the other guys, but he isn't because of the experience and the proven commodity that he is as a point guard. But those other guys are all kind of similar, and it makes it too muddled. And in some ways, we could have a Jose Calderon, TJ Ford competitiveness at the point guard again. I'm okay with that. But when you have like 4 or 5 guys that could actually stake a claim on that position, then it kind of gets too little bit too weird. So that's why I'm kind of against getting Io at this time. I think he's a great player, and I love him to be a Raptor at some point. But I don't know if this year's the right year. Maybe down the road we get him, or if they make a trade and they trade one of our point guards right now for him, that would make sense. Like if they said today, Bobby said, all right, we traded Malachi for Io Dosunmu, then that would make more sense to me. But otherwise, it's just too crowded, the point guard picture right now. It's just too crowded. Seymour saying the real Rexdale bus goes through the heart of the Rex is the 46. The 45 goes through Mount Olive, which makes sense why he was in Berna's video, The Other Side. Laugh out loud. Bye-bye, Delano. A little Toronto geography with Seymour Pape today. Yeah, he's saying the real Rexdale bus is 46. That's Aaron Baines' number. Oh, Aaron Baines' number, 46. No. Yeah, he used to always say Mount Olive. I know that Delano's from around the Mount Olive part over there and stuff. Yeah, okay, this is all making more sense. People are talking about, are we going to miss Dalano? There's a Raptors Rapture article saying Dalano thrived at Summer League. Listen, whatever Dalano did for the Celtics at Summer League this year is nothing in comparison to the summer he had last year. coming into our season last year. He had one of the best summers a project could have in the NBA. That between the Canada stuff down in South America, the amazing performance he put in summer league and the preseason even. Atlanta was absolutely electric last summer, and he thrived last summer, way better than he did for the Celtics this year. So trust me, it's weird. Why they're going to put that out there? I'm not afraid of Banton and Champagny coming after us later in green jerseys. I really am not. I'm not worried about those guys. They can do what they're going to do. I'm not worried about them coming to hurt us. Seymour saying, don't mind my little rant. It's all good. You're just going over Toronto geography and clarifying that Delano may be from Mount Olive. Where is my manners? Good morning, everyone. No problem, Sheriff Seymour Pape. In some ways, you're coming in with rumbling. That's all good. Elijah's here. Good to see Elijah Hutchins. Great Raptors freak. Number one, Flynn. I like this. He's got number one, Flynn. First option, Flynn. He's the incumbent. He's the guy who's supposed to be stepping into that seat after Fred. That's what we had planned since we drafted him out of San Diego State way back during the lockout or the bubble year where he had no time for anything. He didn't get his rookie anything because his rookie year was all messed up. Malachi Flynn. Dennis second, Jeff Dowtin third, and Nowell fourth. How I think it should be to start the season. Could look totally different later on. All right. So in some ways, he's valuing Flynn's familiarity with his teammates already over Schroder coming in as the vet and a more experienced guy. I can't disagree with this. There's a certain connection that Flynn has with Chris Boucher already from years. They really did work a lot together during the Tampa year because a lot of guys were out and they were more consistently in the lineup. And Chris and Malachi are a very good tandem out on the court. They really do know each other. Another person that I really want to see work with Malachi this year is McDaniels. Jalen McDaniels being childhood friends with Malachi. I don't know how much they've already played with each other. And that's a pairing on the court that may be very fun to watch because they are close friends and they are very familiar with each other. So we may see Flynn and McDaniels out on the court at the same time and see a lot of cool stuff between them and their synergy. So that can be very interesting. I don't hate your list at all, Elijah. In fact, in some ways, it really makes a lot of sense that Malachi should get the first shot. If he doesn't do well, Dennis, and then Jeff after that, and Nowell is fourth. Yeah, but you're not even thinking about Mr. Scottie Barnes and how he figures into this. He's saying number four, even if Nowell turns out perfect, it's not what we need. And every game, he is a severe mismatch. He is 4 inches shorter than a 6-foot point guard. There you go. There you go. In some ways, Elijah, Markquis Nowell, before he can start in the NBA, he's got to prove that height won't be a detriment and that he can make up for it, that he's a plus. Otherwise, that's the biggest thing he's got to prove with that, because you're exactly right. This is the thing where Fred had to prove this. It's look, I know my height is a problem in some ways, but I'm going to be so good that you cannot deny me that I am still the best option, even though I'm shorter than the other options. I'm the best option. That's the way that Nowell's going to have to do it. If he's going to end up being the starter, he's got to be absolutely, for sure, clear cut, the best option, because and he'll have to prove it over his height. And I don't doubt he will. He will do this over time. It may not be this year, though. It's going to be in a few years. It took Fred a certain amount of years to get through his path. Well, we got to figure that Nowell's going to take even longer, if not even not make it. So in some ways, Nowell has a harder path than Fred because he is even shorter than Fred. And we'll have to see. But in some ways, I'm not counting Nowell out for anything that he wants in his career, because he's just that kind of guy. Don't count him out. Seriously. Let's see. G-San, problem with Scottie and Dennis as guards they are not the best three-point shooters on the team. This may hurt spacing. Either Scottie is point guard with Gary or OG as the shooting guard, or Scottie plays point forward, in my opinion. Yeah, these are a good point. We want to not have certain weaknesses. And, I won't discount Dennis's three-point shooting. In some ways they are kind of similar. Scottie, Pascal, and Dennis, they're all shooting about the same at threes. But Dennis, in some weird way, he has a weird stat about his threes. This is one of the cool things about Dennis that not a lot of Raptor fans are talking about yet. He is one of the most clutch shooters in the NBA. In fact, he's in like the top 10 with shooting percentage with like 3 minutes to go in the game. So Dennis's MO is kind of like, I won't shoot a lot for the whole entire game. I'll kind of let people forget about me and I'll kind of do the defensive stuff. I'll set guys up. I'll be a real pest. But at the end of the game, when it's winning time, I will step up and take big shots and nail them at very crucial times. This is part of the reason why Laker Nation loves him, is because he shows up when it really matters late and he adds points real quick when we need him to try and win the game. So he's a clutch 3-point shooter that can be depended on in the last 5 minutes of the game, actually. In fact, his clutch numbers are better than Fred's. So there you go. So this is on the download thing about Dennis. He may be like a decoy most of the game, but at the end of the game, he'll actually take the shots and hit them. And so I have a lot of confidence in for that. But I think G's got a good point that if we have Siakam, Barnes, and Schroder out there, some parts of our 3-point shooting won't be fully formed. Does that make sense? I don't know. We could probably work around this, and Darko probably has some ideas for this. But you're exactly right. Spacing is going to be an issue this year with our team, and they're going to definitely want to fix the issues from last year with the spacing. And they're going to want to think about how the shooters space everything. Gradey showing up is going to help a lot, really going to help a lot. Isaac saying, during Twitch summer, someone asked Scottie Barnes about his favorite position. He quickly replied, point guard. The person didn't realize Scottie had answered him and complained. So the person asked me what his answer was. I replied, point God. And Scottie Barnes was reading all this and he said, nah, I'm not like that. I love that Isaac's telling a story from last summer and the great times we had on Twitch. And I vaguely remember this moment. This is funny. So, yeah, Scottie was asked what position he likes to play, and he's point guard very quickly. And this is true. Like, he really does want to be the point guard. In some ways, this may be what we need to do to keep our guy happy, is just go ahead and let him be the point guard. Now, do we let him be the point guard and Dennis is still out there at shooting guard next to him just as a safety, just in case? In some ways, we want to make Scottie happy with paying him and having a good team around him and winning, so he'll stay with the Raptors and continue to develop and be our franchise player. So in some ways, we may need to let him be the point guard. There's no questions about this. It's like Scott wants to be the point guard this year. All right, we'll let him be the point guard. But we're going to start guys next to him that'll really help him take care of the ball. Okay. All right, we can do that. Then we can probably get away with it. But yeah, this is an interesting thing. Scott's want and self-identifying that as a point guard is going to make this even more confusing. In fact, this is the thing where it could be a headache for Darko, because the Scott people may be like whining and crying. Scottie's the point guard. He's the point guard. This may be where they get all bent out of shape this season, is when Darko does not play him at point guard, even though we know Scott loves to be the point guard. All the Scottie fans will go crazy. You should be playing him at point guard. And they'll get mad at Darko maybe. I don't know. I don't want to cultivate any bad issues or anything like that, but I could see where this could be a gripe coming from the Scottie fans at some point this year, that he said he wanted to be the point god, as Isaac put it, and Scottie's humble. And he said, no, it's not like that though. It's not like that though. But yeah, good stuff, Isaac. Thanks for bringing up a memory from last summer. Josh Monroe is saying somebody still has to mentor Flynn, even then he hasn't really proven he can be that guy. This season will prove if Raps even want to extend him besides being a starter. These are some good points by Josh Monroe. You know what? Flynn's development has been so behind the scenes and under the water. In some ways, we don't really understand how far along he is, because he really hasn't gotten an extended period of time to really show this kind of stuff. Well, this year he should. I mean, with Fred's exit, it's obvious that we're going to need some people to try different things and stuff like that. And I think Josh is right. This year may be a very crucial year for Malachi's professional career. In some ways, last summer, I was ready to cut him and just move on from him and just like get a new person in the roster spot. Because it's like, why do we still have Malachi around? We're not pushing him. He's not getting anywhere in our lineup. Why? Well, I think he's a very important, serviceable player to be in the NBA still, and we value him. And other teams around the league may very value him also. Like if we let go of Malachi, what would happen? Would they come and snatch him up And maybe he's more likely to kill us from another team if he's on like the Clippers or the Kings or something all of a sudden. Yeah, I'm more scared of Malachi coming back to bite us in the ass than I am of Champagny and Banton. This guy actually has weapons. We've seen him in the pro-ams. And if we piss him off and cut him out of here, he could be an annoying Raptor killer in his post-Raptors career. So I think you're right. I think in some ways this is a year where he's really going to be tested, and we're going to have to figure out his future with us possibly. But I don't totally agree with you that he has not been mentored or needs a mentor still. I don't know if he does, because he's coming into his fourth season. It's either his fourth or it's his fourth season. And he's gotten a lot of mentorship on the down low, and he's been studious like crazy. This is one thing I've heard about Malachi Flynn is this whole time, even if he hasn't been playing a whole lot, he has been absolutely in the books as far as the playbooks, the scheming, the philosophies. The whole time Fred and him were around, they were talking about everything. Fred was teaching him, and he was getting mentored like crazy. He's gotten all that kind of instruction. It's just we haven't seen it in action and principle on the court fully. But I think that he's been programmed and mentored to be able to be capable to do this. It's just we haven't gotten to see it enough because the opportunities haven't been there. So we'll have to see. I think Flynn's ready. I think it's inside him. He's been a student of the game silently on the bench, and he's been soaking it all up and being ultimate professional from what I hear. He could have been very down or disoppressed or just not happy in his situation, but he was very enthusiastic and very much still soaking up as much knowledge and everything as much as possible. So we'll have to see. We'll have to see, Josh. Great comment. And thanks for being here, Josh Monroe. Seymour saying, if Siakam and OG stay healthy all year, trust me, we're going to be a problem 100%. Yeah, I think this is right. I think that, health is a big issue for the Raptors the last couple of years. We could have had way better years in recent years if our health had been better overall. Pascal and Precious last year would have made a huge difference for what happened with us last year, for sure. I'm with you on that. Seymour's also saying Schroeder came because Darko wants him to be lead guard and lead the team. Malachi is definitely coming off the bench. This could be exactly right. I mean, this is true. As soon as Fred took the bag and went to Houston, Darko and Bobby looked at each other and he said, Schroder. And he's like, okay. And then he called them. And it wasn't even Bobby who called them. Darko called Dennis and asked him to be on the Raptors. The front office didn't reach out. They went through the familiar line of communication from Coach Rajakovic. Hello, Dennis. Would you like to play with me in Toronto? I'm starting a new thing here as the coach. Oh, Coach Darko. Wow. Okay. Let me think about what's the numbers. Boom. Figured out. Boom. Coach Darko gets his guy. And I think there's a lot to what Seymour's saying here. That it's already kind of been shown that Schroder and Darko have a very much a trusting relationship, and he could be the extension of Darko that he needs to help him in this new endeavor as the head coach of the Raptors. And that may be a very big part of it right there. I watched more of Dennis's clips on his channels yesterday, and he had a clip that came out before free agency where he said very much that he was hoping he was going to stay in LA, that his first choice was to stay a Laker, but it didn't work out that way. But he's very happy he's with us. Trust me. It's not a thing where he's upset or disgruntled that he's not with the Lakers. But in the clips from before free agency and everything that happened when we signed him, he was expecting possibly to still be in LA playing for the Lakers, because he was talking about, hopefully I'll be here for barbecues on my roof in my LA house, because he was showing a tour of his LA house. And they had cleaned it all out and moved everything out because they didn't know where he was going to go already. But he wanted to show the house. And he kept saying, hopefully I'll be here still. But I think that realistically, Rob Pelinka and the Lakers, with what they were trying to do with Austin Reeves and Rui Hachimura, that Dennis is never really realistically in the plans. And he knew that. And he may have been saying that in his clips, really just to save face with the Laker fans. That, yeah, I really hope that I'm back still. But, he's perfectly happy to be coming to Toronto. He really does like the idea of playing for our city, his family being here. And obviously, he's very excited about being with Darko. So, it's not a problem, but he did show indications that he was trying to hopefully stay with the Lakers, but it wasn't going to fit with what they're trying to do with the young guys that they've got. Let's see. Randolph saying, Lex, you're on point. Jeff has shown that he is like the stabilizing bar on a vehicle. Bring him in to stabilize things when they're going wrong. Yeah. I have a lot of trust in Jeff Dowtin Jr. that he's just steady. And in some ways, in a world that's so chaotic and up and down and crazy and weird, you want just something that's dependable and reliable. And Jeff Dowtin Jr. is that. That's just those are words to describe him. Totally just steady. And that's cool that we have varied options. These guys are all very different and they can do different things. And that's kind of cool because that means Darko's got a cool toolbox that hopefully he'll open. It won't just sit on the bench collecting dust like it did while Nick was here. You can use that toolbox, Darko. Just open it up and get the different screwdriver, whichever one you want to use. You want that German screwdriver? Go put Schroder in. Put that Schroder screwdriver in. Oh, you want a more consistent screwdriver, a flathead or something like that? Okay, put in Jeffrey Dowtin Jr. You got different screwdrivers for different jobs. And we got a couple of point guards that can fill it. Monique is here. Good to see Superfan Monique Lawrence, the greatest. Good morning, everyone. Gary Trent Jr. or Jeff at point guard only use Flynn if someone is injured. Wow, she's just bypassing Dennis altogether. This is on the down low. Another secret option for point guard is Gary Trent Jr. Gary has trained as a point guard. And when he was younger, he played point guard, a lot of point guards. So he does have some of this. Now, he doesn't show it at the NBA level. We don't see assist numbers from him. He's very much a black hole. When he gets the ball, he's more likely to shoot it than pass it. We know that about him. But in some ways, we love him for that because we need more of that on our team. I don't know if he'd be like, in some ways, it's a very similar thing to what I was saying earlier, Monique. It'd be like he would be at the point guard, but Scottie would be shooting guard and he'd actually be carrying the ball. Scottie would be carrying the ball. And so it would kind of be like that. So in some ways, Gary is not going to be the point guard. If he showed more assists, kind of passing acumen at the NBA level instead of shooting so much, I would trust him more for this. He has the training to be the ball handler and bring it up the court and be kind of the point guard. But in some ways, he's never played as a point guard in the NBA level. So it doesn't totally fit. And she's just ignoring Dennis altogether here and just saying, all right, Jeff then, Gary or Jeff, and Malachi is the backup to Jeff. There you go. I mean, we're all looking at this in different ways in the hierarchy of who should get the first chance and who should come in when and what should be the backup plan and stuff like that. It's very interesting. Great think tank today. A lot of different ideas. Monique saying Dennis at point guard all the way. Almost forgot about. Okay, she did forget about Dennis. I was like, Monique must not like Dennis or something. She's like, okay. She is saying him first. Okay, so it's really Dennis, Gary, Jeff, and then Flynn possibly. So she really put Flynn at the bottom of it. Wow, the bottom of the pile. Wow. All right, Iceman like Gervin's here. Menace Police, look out, y'all. Whoop, 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 whoop. We don't want to have no trouble, Mr. Royakovich. So please do not have the Menace Police come and visit you this season. That's right. Flynn is going to surprise this season. He's a solid hooper. Never underestimate Seattle, Tacoma area hoopers. Nick Nurse was holding him back. Lowry had to prod Nick Nurse to play Flynn as a rookie, and he won Rookie of the Month. This is all true. And I love that Iceman's bringing this up because it's true. In Malachi's rookie year, he had some accolades. He won a Rookie of the Month. He had some really solid times in that Tampa year. He got played a lot that year because of the COVID and different issues with guys missing. We got to see Malachi get some burn. And then this second year, we hardly saw him. And then in his third year, he kind of showed up when Fred got hurt in a couple different places. But then he got hurt immediately after Fred got hurt. There's a lot more to Malachi than we understand. And I know that Iceman like Gervin is respecting this. That this guy seriously is a baller. We saw him put 70 points at a Pro-Am last summer around this time. And there's certain things about him that are really good for scoring wise. Like he is a hooper. And we got to discover more about him. Let's get some of the payoff on the investment in developing him the last few years. Now it's your time, Flynn. Step up and take that brass ring and roll with it, baby. You got a good chance now. In some ways, you have the best chance you've had since you've been in a Raptors jersey because Fred and Kyle are both gone. at this point. And you know what? I like Iceman's prediction. He's going to surprise people this season. I think he's right. I think Iceman like Gervin's exactly right. People have forgotten who Malachi is and what he could possibly be, and he's going to remind them. Watch. Yeah, I'm here for it, Iceman. I'm going to be excited to see Malachi succeed this year. Cool Cat saying Delano is taking a big gamble with the Celtics when I look at his contract offering. I know it's not guaranteed. In fact, Delano could be cut by the Celtics before the season even starts. I think that this may be very likely in some ways. I don't know what their roster makeup is looking like right now and how competitive it is. In some ways, it could be that him and Justin are fighting for the same spot. And there may be a very difficult, sad thing because the two friends are competing for one place. You know, I saw his contract and I'm like, whoa, yeah, he's not guaranteed to make this team. In fact, they have all these, if he makes a team, then he makes $2 million a year. Otherwise, who knows what's going to happen. He could very well be like Justin this last year and be a floater. And he could be like on weird G League teams this year and not actually in the NBA. So we'll have to see what happens with Banton. Everything is unsure for him. Staying in Toronto would have been the most sure thing. But in some ways, he's at the Celtics' mercy. And he has to play super well to make their team. Otherwise, he may get cut. In some ways, we do this. Like what we had Bo Cruz on our team last year. In some ways, people get players from other teams and they have them come there. Like Delano's on Boston now. And they may be like, yeah, you were good enough for Toronto, but you're not good enough for Boston. You're cut. Get out of here. They're like, it's like they want to get a little get back at Toronto. So they get Toronto's own $45, have him come in there, make him work real hard in the offseason, and then cut him in training camp. That could happen. Iceman saying Nick Nurse seemingly had a personal agenda against Flynn because his father spoke out about how he was being treated by Nick Nurse. His dad walked it back, but the damage was done to Flynn's playing prospects with Nick. I've speculated and wondered about this, Eric Flynn's hand and maybe possibly hurting Malachi. We talked a lot about this around when that happened on this channel. And I was saying, Eric, you're not helping Malachi. If anything, you're making things worse in some ways. And, knowing more about Nick's personality and his exit, we realize how petty he is. And he probably does have grudges. In some ways, he may have been trying to, he called him Nick Nursery. He was very derogatory of Nick Nurse and saying some really messed up things. And I'm sure it didn't help Malachi at all in his standing with Nick Nurse. And I think there is a lot to Nick Nurse like holding Malachi back, partly because of Eric Flynn's criticism. So, well, that's all out the window. Let's see if Eric Flynn gets to meet Darko and they become buddies. And we won't be making up any stupid names like he's keeping Malachi in the Darko, not playing him. It's like instead of Nursery, he's in the Darko. Oh, man. Yeah, Eric Flynn, just be quiet. You're not helping Malachi. It's so weird because Malachi is such a good pro himself, and his dad was just not helping him at that time. And I could tell that Malachi's like, Dad, just shut up. Please just shut up and let me just try and do my career, man. Come on. I know you love me and you're trying to do good things for me and help me, but that's not helping. Trust me, it's the very opposite. Because Malachi's been an ultimate professional at every stage of all this with his dad and the way he acted and him not getting playing time and him not being like disgruntled and being an upset person on our team. That just goes to show how much maturity and how pro Malachi is. His dad's all disgruntled saying, you never play my son and stuff like that. His son's not upset. He's being a pro and doing things right. And that speaks a lot about Flynn's character. Seriously. In a lot of ways, Flynn could have been a little baby at different times about different things, but he hasn't. And even when he's gotten his chances and he's gotten hurt immediately after and lost his chances, that's depressing and sad. It's like Chris said on Hustle Play Podcast. Chris Boucher said, I felt so bad for Malachi because he finally got his chance and then he turned around and got hurt. And I was like, oh my gosh, I felt so bad for Malachi at that point because Fred was hurt and then Malachi's getting the start and then he gets hurt also. Oh, it's the worst. Elijah's saying some of my points got deleted. I broke down why I had every point guard where they were. I just don't go in on Nowell for no reason. Let me see, Elijah. So far, I've only seen 2 of yours. You got 1, Flynn, Dennis, Dowtin, and Nowell. And then even Nowell turns out perfect is not what we need. And every game, he's a severe mismatch. Yeah, I did read that one. I'm sorry. If you have any comment that you would like me to read for sure, just rewrite it in. That's what I can do. I don't know what YouTube's doing. And sometimes people think they wrote something in, but maybe it didn't get through somehow, some way. I don't know what's going on. Let's see. I just didn't go in on Nowell for no reason. Okay, so you had like something about each one of them in an order. I don't know. Maybe the chat is like being flaky, and like if you spam too much, it's like limiting. I don't know. MSJ saying, "Hey there. So who has been decided on this morning? Good to see you, Chris." Not really. We're just kind of talking about all the different looks and kind of how it would look with different people in that spot. And it's very interesting. In fact, I'm figuring out some things just from talking to you guys. We have a lot of confidence in Malachi. Iceman and I do. Nowell, it's going to be a while. His height's going to be against him, obviously. Jeff is a great security blanket as far as like just in case we need consistency or somebody just as a baseline. Good. Dennis is going to be interesting to see his defensive prowess and his connection with Darko himself. And then, of course, Scottie's huge, very much dream to be a point guard in the NBA. How will this all fit with the idea of who's going to be playing point guard for the Raptors this year? And we're kind of came around on all those kind of things. Test, Wayne saying test. Okay, hopefully I see your test, Wayne. David's here. Good to see David Saborn. Fred shoots less than 40% from the field. Not that good. Yeah, the efficiency for the Rockets is crazy. Jake's Takes was talking about this yesterday. Jake talking to Alvin Williams, and they were saying that like Jake's so funny. He knows his stuff. And he is quoting the efficiency of the shooting of Dylan Brooks and Fred VanVleet. And then he's like, and then you add Jabari Smith and Jalen Green and all the Rockets. And he said, this is what Jake said yesterday. And I love it. I'm totally giving you credit, Jake. And I love that you're just a stat meister. He said they will have 4 of the top 10 worst field goal shooters in the NBA on the Rockets this year. Seriously, that's what Jake said. He dropped that knowledge on Boogie yesterday when he was interviewing Alvin. He said the Rockets will have 4 of the worst shooters out of the top 10 worst shooters in the league next year, between Fred, Jalen Green, Dylan Brooks, and one of the other Rockets. I think it's Jabari. So yeah, that's pretty funny. Good stuff, Jake. He really does know his stuff, and I love that channel. Jake's Takes. Check it out. He's got his latest interview with Alvin Williams, our broadcaster. And it's so good. It's so good. Alvin's just so great too, as usual. So good. So good. David saying, I think everyone in the league has better clutch numbers than Fred. Laugh out loud. Well, actually, that's not totally true. Fred has pretty good clutch numbers. He really does. It's just that over his career, he has good clutch numbers. In the recent years, he hasn't had very good clutch numbers because he's overworked. Iceman is saying Nowell is going to be leading the 905 this season. Dennis just came off of a Western Conference Finals where he replaced D'Angelo Russell in the starting lineup. Raps are going to surprise people this season. Good vibes. I love it. I love Iceman LeGervin's enthusiasm and positivity. This is what we should be like right now, Raptors fans. Some Raptors Nation are holding their heads and feeling like, oh, so sorry for themselves. No. We're badasses. We're about to show it some more with a new coach, Coach Rajakovic. Yeah, I'm with you on this. Dennis has a way better resume and some things about him that people just don't give him credit for. He's a maligned kind of NBA player who's actually a really good pro who's been around for a long time and really knows his stuff. You dig deeper and think about his years in Atlanta and those teams that he was on that were really, really good with Coach Budenholzer way back. He's had a very interesting NBA career. He's been all over the place. He spent a little bit of time in Boston in that ugly green jersey with Tatum and Brown. He was with Rajakovic in Oklahoma City. He's been on a lot of different teams. Now, people have said, well, that means he's no good. He's a jerk or he's a problem. That's what a lot of people are trying to say right now, that they're predicting that Dennis is going to be an asshole and be a problem on our team with his attitude and trying to be pushy with being a leader. Yeah, get out of here with that kind of thought. That's not who he is. He's a good teammate, and he'll be a great leadership voice on our team. Trust me. He will be very, very, very good. I'm all about the good vibes, and I'm with you on this. Let's put some respect on Schroder's name, y'all. Let's put some respect on his name. Cool Cat saying Pascal's three-point shooting 40% from left corner, 37% from the break on the left. It's the right corner and the break on the left that is low 30. There you go. So he's got his spots. He's got to work on those other spots. Siakam is somebody we should talk about today because in some ways I really like the Scottie Pippen model of point forward. And Siakam is much better with the ball and taking care of it in some ways than any of the other forwards, even Scottie. And I kind of like Siakam being the distributor. In the times I've seen in recent years when we use him as a point forward, and there's good things that happen when Siakam's kind of the guy initiating the offense. So once again, we'll have to see what Darko values and what he institutes as his system. If Siakam is like a point forward in it, and they're kind of doing things creatively through him like that, hey, that's another option. They're there. Stargate saying, in my opinion, Dowtin should be at the 2 than the 1. Okay, that's interesting. Also, I wish Scottie would work with a player like Tim Duncan in terms of low post and the paint moves. Can you imagine Scottie with a TD jab step? Ooh, I love this. I love this. I imagine it. I have a big smile on my face if I'm asleep and I'm dreaming that stuff. Oh yeah, that's good stuff. Any way that Scottie can mimic Tim Duncan I mean, Tim's not going to work out with him himself because he's a Spurs guy. He's going to go work with Wemby. But any way that he can mimic Tim Duncan or Kawhi Leonard in the low post with his overpowering stuff, maybe he gets more of a bank shot like Tim Duncan had, like with his big fundamental moves. I am all for it. I want Scottie to be more like Tim Duncan more and more as time goes on, whether it's on the defensive end or the offensive end. And I love that so much. Yeah, Tim Duncan. That's a great person to compare to Scottie. Some people say you're crazy, Lex. No, there's a lot of Tim Duncan in Scott that can be derived and mined and formed into. And if Scottie wants to be a defensive minded player, well, Tim Duncan's a great template for somebody you should try and follow in the footsteps of in all kinds of different ways. Not just as the way he plays team defense and team rebounds for the Spurs over the years, but also the offensive stuff in the low post with the bank shots and the really overpowering post game. Scottie, you got that too. You could be like Tim Duncan on both ends of the court. Seriously, it may not be the exact level of Tim Duncan and the winning that Tim Duncan did, but hey, close to Tim Duncan's pretty good. You don't have to be perfectly Tim Duncan, but be closer to him where people are saying he's kind of like Tim Duncan. That's what I want. That's what I want because he's really, I see magic in Scott. I see Kawhi in Scott, but I also see Tim Duncan in Scott. I definitely do. Definitely do. That's really interesting that you want Jeff Dowtin at the 2. Yeah, I get that. I get that in some ways. I mean, what do? You put him out there with Flynn or something like that, or him and Schroder? They're 2 really feisty defensive guards, Schroder and Dowtin Jr. Let's see. Criscom's here. Good to see the great Criscom. What up, Lex? As far as spacing, I'm expecting Siakam and Scottie to have much improved jumpers. Just putting it on the record from today. All right, great, Criscom. Thank you for your prediction today. So you think that they're going to have better jumpers this year? Well, they got to improve their jumper every single year, taking a lot of threes and just getting their mechanics down better and better. The big knock on Scott was he couldn't shoot when he got drafted. Well, he's going to try and prove them wrong more and more as time goes on. Scottie, get more consistent with your 3, and that'll help the Raptors so much. Thank you, Criscom. MSJ saying, I think Dennis is the answer here. We don't need to think the 3 ball is everything. We need to run a passing-based offense and look to generate layups. Scottie Barnes should play point guard on the second unit and learn it. So maybe Scottie starts at forward, but when Schroder comes out, he's running the team for little bits here and there. Could very well be we give him some leash and to run the team at different times and experiment, and we'll see how much Darko's comfortable with how long those periods get to. It could very well be this guy all of a sudden he's like doing it. It's like a little kid without the training wheels. You're doing it, honey. You're doing it. I'm riding a bike, daddy. Maybe at some point we'll take those training wheels off of Scott as a point guard and boom, all of a sudden he can just be it. And that's just it. I think that it kind of balancing like who's going to be distributing and stuff while Scott is still learning and like making less mistakes is smart. It's really, really smart. Yeah, the 3 ball isn't everything with Dennis, that's for sure. We got other guys who can take that shot. It's the defense of Dennis. That's his biggest plus. Seriously, his defense is going to be so fun to watch. In some ways, I've already kind of thought in my head about a Dennis Schroder, Gary Trent Jr. backcourt and just how annoying that backcourt could be for like being on the ball and just annoying people. I know Fred was already kind of doing that stuff, but Dennis is a little bit longer and quicker than Fred. And in some ways, him and Gary are similar kind of attack defenders, and they could do a lot of really interesting blitz traps, Dennis and Gary. If they figure out the chemistry like Fred and Gary had, they could do some really interesting things defensively because they have a similar kind of like defensive mobility and length to them that is really annoying to other guards. Let's see. David saying replacing. Hang on. Replacing Fred with Dennis was an upgrade. Go Raptors. There's a lot of people that believe this. David, you're not in the minority in some ways on this. I don't totally agree with this. But there are some people that very much are saying, yeah, Dennis is an upgrade over Fred. I won't disrespect Fred that much, but I can see where there are some upgrades with Dennis over Fred for sure. Seymour saying David dropping the people's elbow on Fred, laughing out loud. All right, Seymour just referenced The Rock, so he's gonna get a dunk because I don't know why. I just felt like hearing so he just dropped the people's elbow. That's hilarious. I can't do the eyebrow right now. Monique saying Nowell is number 4 at point guard for me. Yeah. Okay. So you're like Schroder, Flynn, or Dowtin, and then Flynn, and then Nowell. That's about where I look at it too. Wayne saying based on current players, point guard by committee is a gold mine. The point guard chosen to play should depend on the needs of that particular game and the deficiencies of the competition. Talent pool is sufficient. In some ways, this is what we've already been doing. Point guard by committee. It doesn't matter who gets the ball off the backboard for the defensive rebound. Just bring it up. You bring it up yourself or throw it up the court. It doesn't need to be a traditional point guard. I'm going to bring the ball up the court kind of thing. You can pass it up real quick, or you can do a Kyle Lowry football pass, or as we've seen, Precious will grab a defensive rebound and he'll just run with it, start dribbling right up the court himself. So, it's interesting, like that kind of stuff, committee stuff that Nick had done with the kind of the ball handling and the distributing. I think that will carry over, and that versatility and flexibility, and also the surprise of not really knowing who's going to do what is actually really good strategy to have. So I could see that Darko kind of taking some of that from before and using it now. I used to like seeing the Raptors come down the court. One time down the court, Siakam would have the ball, like we said, being the point forward. And then the next time down the court, Scottie would bring the ball down the court, and he would be like the point forward that time. And we weren't even using Fred or anybody as the point guard. It was really like a double barrel shotgun of point forwards alternating between Scottie and Pascal. And in some ways, that was kind of safe because Scott got good ball handling duties and being the point forward. But then it was alternating, and there's a safety net because Siakam's out on the court also, and he can do it sometimes. I think diversity and having different looks and keeping them guessing is a very good strategy. Just as long as we're organized on our side and everybody's on the same page and understands what the game plan is, even if it's complicated and confusing the other side. That's part of the problem too. It's like we need them to have their shit together so they know what they're supposed to be doing with each other, even if it's changing all the time, like Nick on his defensive schemes. Let's see. Country Kong's here. Good to see Scottie Barnes, Twitch family 2022, the summer of Scottie. Last year, Country Kong was there. Good morning, Raptors freaks. I think the best solution at point guard would be to start none of them. What is this Monty Brewster stuff here? Monty Brewster. Vote for none of them. Don't vote for me. Don't vote for me. I think we can start Dennis at first just for his ego, laugh out loud, and then slide Scottie to point guard and Gary to starting shooting guard. Yeah, we'll have to see. We'll have to see. I think in some ways, Dennis is going to help Darko with his transition as the coach. And that may be why it's very essential to have Dennis out there a lot early. Now, Dennis is just kind of like Gary. Both of them have no ego about starting or not starting. That they're very much the same like this. In some ways, Dennis would like to start, but if he doesn't start for the Raptors, it's not going to be the end of the world for him. Trust me. He's going to get his time out there either way. And he doesn't have to start. It's never been that way for him. Him and Gary are similar in this. And I appreciate that about both of them. The flexibility about, being a starter or being bench. They're good at both. And that's why they're both very valuable in that way. So we'll have to see. Schroeder's ego is confusing because I don't know if he's actually got an ego. It seems like he does, but in some ways, I don't know if he does in the bad way for a team. It's like, these guys earn stuff because they have been around for a while and they've done different things and have accolades. And in some ways, we got to respect Dennis's body of work already. And, people around him need to realize this is Dennis Schroder, 10 years in the league. It's just like Thaddeus, 17 years. You need to respect that. That is accomplishment to be in the league this long, especially with the way it's trending and everybody getting kicked out before they're 30. David's saying, I'm actually serious. I've always been a big Dennis fan. He's fast, defends well, and is actually a point guard. Fred's a shooting guard, as simple as that. David's making points. David wants to kick Fred on his exit. It's fine. I'll allow it. He's not a Raptor anymore. Randolph's saying, Lex, let's treat Dennis as he is, now one of our guys. The break he has not gotten to lead a team is what he may need to go to the next level in his growth and maturity. Others will learn from him. Yeah, I like that comment by Randolph. Yeah, he is definitely on our team, and he is proud to be a Raptor. I'm just saying it seemed like in a couple, like a month or so ago before he got signed by us after Fred left, he was kind of intimating that he was thinking he was going to still be a Laker. But I'm sure he's very flattered by the money. I don't think the Lakers could have given him the amount of money the Raptors did. So he's actually probably really happy to be a Raptor. And like he said, too, he's like the Raptors have wanted him for a few years and they finally landed him. In 2020, it was between us and the Lakers. And he chose the Lakers, and now he's chosen us, and now he's with us, which is fantastic. Yeah, I'm really excited to see Dennis in a Raptors jersey. David's saying not all shooting guards can be point guards. We made the mistake with Fred. Keep Gary at shooting guard. All right, David, let's not pile on Fred too much. We wish him well in his life, but not on the court. And he is a Raptor legend. We do love Fred. Fred is always going to be important to us, and we love him. We love Fred. Don't get it twisted. You can kick him a little bit on the way out. It's fine. MSJ saying, yes, Dave. Fred VanVleet is really best as an off-ball shooting guard. He wasn't truly able to run things last year, in my opinion. And on the Rockets, I'm very interested to see how he fits. He took the money, but the fit, I'm not sure. We were speculating, actually, too, that Fred could be in trouble there, because some of those youngsters may outplay him or they may play better. It's a youth movement down there. And some of the fans around the Rockets may be like, we don't want old ass Fred taking minutes away from our young guys. And then he's got that $40 million contract around his neck. It's kind of like they got to justify playing him a lot because they're paying him so much. But what if he's not the best options on his team because guys like Jalen Green and young guys are better? And then there's a whole, like, they really got a situation where things could blow up in their face in Houston. Seriously, they really, really do. And Fred may be in a very uncomfortable position because he is earning so much. And what he actually contributes to their team and what he's doing for them may not actually be what they may be like, we don't want to start Fred anymore at some point in the season because we'd much rather have a young starting lineup and Fred's got to go to the bench. Just think about that situation. This kind of shit could happen to him in Houston this year. Really, really could. It's true. Fred is a weird player. In some ways, he's hard to fit on your roster because he is more of a shooting guard. I will completely agree with that assessment by you guys. And in some ways, him leaving helped get rid of a player on our team that kind of didn't fit positionally. And in some ways, we made more sense as a team with our Vision 6'9", not having a 6-foot shooting guard on our team all of a sudden. So in some ways, that's addition by subtraction right there. Iceman saying Gradey Dick was ranked as the 121st player at Summer League. That's hoops hypes. Moses Brown, top-ranked Raptor at 80, and Gradey Dick was number 2 highest ranked Raptor. Yeah, I saw some of the Summer League accolades, like the teams and the MVP and the champ, of course. Cleveland. And then I saw that there's rankings for these guys at Summer League. Yeah, this is kind of bullshit. Honestly, it's bullshit. And we also got to remind ourselves, Iceman, we're getting that Canada discount. Somebody's going to look at that and they're going to see, oh, Toronto, I'm going to put them 5 spots lower and stuff like that. I don't know. I'd have to look at the list and everybody's around there and I'd be like, well, Gradey was better than this person on that team. And that, I mean, it's not that we did well at Summer League. So this isn't a surprise. So I'm not upset that they ranked us low at this Summer League or something like that. But it also, we know that they're not being impartial. They're going to sewer us a little bit. There's probably at least 3 or 5 spots, or maybe even 10 spots that Grady's lower than he should be. David's saying happy Fred got what he wanted, but it's bizarre that the last season is a team option. Fraudulent Max. David is just cutting. He is cutting right now. Just stabbing him. All right. Wayne saying once Darko does the opposite of Nick regarding who's staying on the court, we're good. By not taking off a non-starter who's making shots is an improvement. Point guard by committee ensures the hot player stays on. I like that. I like that. Yeah, reward the people that are doing well. Have a path for the bench guys to get more minutes because they're just playing absolutely fantastic. There's a lot of stuff we could see improved from the way Nick Nurse ran our team. Country Kong saying, Lex, I'm so glad to hear you still have high hopes for Malachi. I thought you'd given up on the Crimson Flynn. I think he's a very talented first-round pick from Masai who was a victim of the Nick Nursery. Yeah, I feel like he needs to get a chance. Part of it is Masai really believes in him. Why would he keep him around for so long like this? We've invested so much in him, time, development. Well, we need to see the payoff now. This is your year, Malachi. You better come in and take advantage of this. This is your time. Fred's gone. Kyle's gone. You're supposed to be the third guy coming after Fred. So it's your time, Malachi. Let's go. Fiercely saying Darko's touch will be gold like Midas's touch. We may see a nice progression with Malachi. Schemes Nick Nurse was unable to elaborate to showcase his strengths. Yeah, some good offensive sets. They really set up Malachi with some really nice, good open shots in spots on the court that Malachi has sweet spots. You know, that's something you got to utilize. Find out where those spots are. Don't just make it willy-nilly, whatever. Go out and play, guys. No, get them very specific ideas about how you want them to move so that they can get to very specific spots and get very specific shots they're good at. And I'm all about that. I think that that's something, if you can tailor make this for Malachi, we're going to see him showcased and a very, very good player if we can get that kind of stuff. I like the Midas touch. I like that. Darko's touch will be like the Midas touch. I hope that's completely true. Fiercely saying, my two comments from Gradey disappeared yesterday. I don't even swear. I don't know why they were mysteriously removed. Maybe you put his last name in, Fiercey. They're like, oh, bad language. She said dick or something. I don't know. I don't know what's going on with YouTube. We've had speculation with different people before, like Shane Waters. He's out in BC and he wrote a bunch of comments. He wouldn't see him and he was upset with me. But it was like, I don't know what's going on. Sometimes, Tom and I were speculating that either YouTube is doing weird things with the comments sometimes, or it could be that sometimes people are punching in comments and they may not be at home or something. It may be a situation where you're putting it in and it's not going through the internet and it's not coming through and receiving somehow, some way. I don't know what it could be. But I am trying to diligently read every single comment that is on here that I can see, guys, just so you know. And if I don't say something, I don't mind y'all repeating it and just writing it in again. I know it's a pain in the ass. And you're like, oh, I wish you just see this. But know that if I don't get your comments, probably because it's not there, and just rewrite it if you can, please. Please. I don't know what happened with your comments from Gradey. I went and looked for them at that time. And then even after in the replay, when I reviewed the stream, I still didn't see them. Wayne saying Malachi has the reputation of putting in the work even after games. He would come out after the crowd is gone and do his shooting reps. Give us his stats, Lex, as a measurement of his matrix. Nice. I don't know. You want to go look at Malachi's stats? All right, let me go look at Malachi Flynn. Maliki. All right, let's see. Mally. Come on, Mally. Rico's going to not be yelling, come on, Mally, like he did last year. So Malachi has averaged 5.5 points per game his whole entire 3 years of career. He had 14 games he started in his first year as a rookie, and he had his best year as a rookie. He averaged 7.5 points and 2.5 rebounds and 2.9 assists. In the years since, it has not been as good, but partly because he does not get the same amount of minutes. Now he's played around 47, 44, 53 games. You know, his shooting stats could be better. He is a 37% shooter over his career, a 34% three-point shooter, and a 75% free throw shooter. So I think that the main point here is like what you're saying. He stayed after practice, put in extra work. He's really in the playbooks. Like he probably knows the plays and the playbook stuff inside out. There's who knows how much Fred talked to him about, or Kyle too, in his rookie year, about like passing knowledge, like that really good like proprietary NBA point guard knowledge, vet knowledge that those guys taught him. He may have like got it all in, and even though he hasn't had practice to put it in theory, it's all inside his head, and he remembers what Kyle said in his rookie year. He remembers how Fred taught him, well, this is what you need to do if this situation happens and this particular thing happens on the court. You do this. That kind of stuff is pre-programmed in him. It's just we don't know if it's in there and he can execute it and use all that knowledge off the top of his head without putting it in practice, because he just really hasn't gotten to do that. Well, this year, hopefully you'll get to do that, and we'll see how much he retained and how much he really gleaned and soaked up from a year of Kyle and 3 years of Fred. So that's going to be the interesting thing. And I think his reputation for working hard and studying and doing stuff like that, that's going to serve him so well at this point in this battle for who's going to be the point guard for the Raptors. Elijah's saying at Fiercey, okay, cool. I was super disappointed, but just accept my fate. Like, whatever. Yeah, whatever. Elijah, I'm so sorry. You know that I would not purposefully skip your comments, and I am really reading everything that I can see. I appreciate you hanging in there. And, like I said, if it's really, really important, just keep writing it until I get it. Isaac saying at Fiercely, it must be the Ottawa effect. Your comments got derailed like our LRT. Our LRT is all weird, too. Yeah, we got a weird LRT here, too. Isaac's got the butthole face out with the guy and the crying person. Cool Cat saying Dennis has a connection to Masai. His former agent was friends with Masai and Circle. This is good information. Very interesting, Cool Cat. Very, very interesting. I did not know there was a connection that way. Makes sense. This is good. This is good stuff. Fiercey saying at Isaac, she's laughing. David saying, oh, Ottawa's still having trouble with that LRT. Laugh out loud. What a disaster that has been. We're talking about transit now. Stargate saying, in reference to Dennis, the same thing they were saying about Kyle and his attitude when he first came to the Raptors is the same thing they're saying about Dennis now. And look how Kyle turned out. Kyle was worse than Dennis back then. Seriously. In some ways, he was immature and taking it out on people, but he wasn't actually walking the walk himself totally at that time. It's when he started walking the walk that he became an effective leader. It was before he was kind of like being lazy still and trying to boss everybody around, but he hadn't proven anything. That's a big part of what Kyle's problem was. Casey and them challenged him and said, look, you want to be this and this in the league? Well, you better listen to me or you're going to be gone. And he listened to them. And that's how he became who he became. But when Kyle showed up and he was being like that, he didn't have any kind of leg to stand on because he hadn't done jack shit in his career. And he was already trying to boss everybody around. Well, he had to get it together. He had to like lose some of his weight, work really hard, and show that initiative. And then he became a good leader. That's not a problem with Dennis. Dennis always has been that. And that's why I was like, I like the parallels you're bringing between Dennis Schroder and Kyle Lowry and their leadership and maybe how they rub people the wrong way because they're just brash and outspoken about things. It's really crazy, this stuff with Kleber at this point. In some ways I don't like it because it shows that Dennis kind of steps in it with different people. But also at the same time, he's just a real person. And in some ways, a real's got to recognize real. And if he's like me, he's just saying what he thinks and he doesn't waste any time, like not saying what he thinks. In some ways, I respect that a lot. So it's going to be interesting. I think Dennis is different because he's much further along in his career. And he's in some ways proven things better than Kyle, who just showed up on the Raptors, 15 years ago or something like that, 13 years ago, something, I forget, somewhere around there. Monique saying Scotty's jumper looks smooth just by videos I've seen. I like this. We've seen Scotty working a lot. You know what? Let's go do the Instagram check since Monique brought up the jumper. All right, Gradey is putting on blast Meritrust as usual. He's got to fulfill his obligations to advertise for Meritrust Bank Credit Union. He's also at the Kansas City Royals game last night. They were playing the Detroit Tigers and lost. So he was at the Royals game in Kansas City. So he's been to a couple MLB games this summer. And then he's on the road with T-Rob, riding around at night with the Jayhawks. The Jayhawks are out at night in Kansas. And then he got a really nice piece of art by a guy named Trav, it looks like. So, yeah, a very colorful piece of art there. Slim Duck. He's got the really funny clip of the little girl on the teacups at Disney World, and she's freaking out. And it says, "Life is a journey," and it says, "My journey." And she's like, and he's saying the facials are 1000%. So it's like Chris is just holding on to life and riding it, and he's got crazy faces like this little girl on the teacups. Also, there's something from Trap Transition that Chris is putting on blast. You picked a side, so make sure it's comfortable over there because you got to stand on that. I wonder if he's talking to Delano. Markquis is Mr. New York City showing the fit out on the street in New York, wearing a nice blue shirt and a blue hat, just smiling. He's living the life. He's also posted, you picked a side, so make sure it's comfortable over there because you got to stand on that. That is interesting that they're both posting this Trap Transition, you pick the side thing. Markquis and Chris. That's some team unity. I like that. Markquis also wearing a really cool like pink fuchsia like suit with the white t-shirt and the chain and the white kicks. Very stylistic. There, Mr. New York City. You are big time now, baby. That's right. I love to see it. Ron Harper Jr. putting on blast Tariq Francis, Highlander Nation. I guess it's a friend of his. And also, Ron's dropped by the Atlantic Physical Therapy Center, stopped by their wall office today to get some treatment from Mike. So Ron's wearing Raptors shorts, and they got the Raptors logo there. And I'm guessing this is an office for the Raptors to go get physical therapy over in like Jersey or something. So it looks like Ron's at home getting treatment from the Raptors still. That's very cool and interesting to me. Let's see, who else do we got on here? Pascal is got his Pascal PS43 Foundation on blast. To all the data dunkers, part of the PS43 Foundation data science and basketball program. It was such an honor meeting you, and we thank you for showing us how sports and data combines. All right, cool. So look at this. Siakam, I knew he was giving these computers to kids and stuff around Toronto, but I didn't realize that part of the program is to integrate sports with data. And who knows, maybe he's getting these metrics kids coming up. They'll be the next Eric Curry or Brittany Donaldson coming from this crew of computers that Pascal's given to people with the PS43 Foundation. I love that so much. And then also he's got learning a new skill while having fun playing basketball. Thank you to the brilliant participants of this program. PS43 Foundation. There you go. Siakam, with your work is always so good. Scotty has been filming commercials this week. You can tell. He's in front of a green screen, so he's definitely probably doing more of his goofy Bitcoin commercials or something. This guy's saying this guy is a true pro. The guy who's talking about Scotty, who worked with him, the director, shooting with a community agency and Scottie Barnes. All right, good stuff. There's your Instagram check. So Scotty's definitely doing commercials this week. We definitely see some new Scotty's commercials coming out later on. So good stuff. David's saying, I'm not trying to kick Fred. I just don't want to see Gary playing point guard. I'm not interested in Gary playing point guard either. I think we can get away with him not having to play point guard. Fiercely saying, I'll write it in a cryptic way. I noticed Grady's engagement boomed on another platform since his drafting. Okay, I almost misread this and say, what? He got engaged to his girlfriend? Okay. So you're saying boomed on another platform since his drafting. So he's not on TikTok hardly at all. If I'm noticing, he's not doing any TikTok at all right now. I mean, let me go look at that real quick. I think he's not doing TikTok. I mean, I don't go and look at TikTok very often myself anyway, but I don't see any new TikToks right now with as far as like what he's doing. Yeah, I don't even know if his TikTok's up right now. It's really weird. I am seeing him a lot more on Instagram, and he's definitely doing a lot of like advertising for sure. But you know what? He's been NIL for a while, Fiercey. So he's been making that ad money already during the year when he was playing for Kansas. So he's been getting that bag for a bit. He could teach Scott some things about it. Monique saying, does Flynn return back to Pro-Am? He better. Yeah, he better. You're exactly right, Monique. He better, because his stock goes up when he goes to Pro-Ams. He'll definitely probably be at the Seattle one, and he'd be real smart to come back to the Toronto one too and show up for that one also. Yeah, I hope he plays in Pro-Ams. It's almost he's suited for playing in Pro-Ams. MSJ saying, have a good day, y'all. All right, Chris, have a great Thursday. Get out there and have a great day in the sunshine. The nice day here in Toronto is very, very beautiful day. in the 416. Cool Cat saying Gradey will be a marketing boom for the Raptors and the U.S. media. He's from a sports state that support their own players, and he has carved out a niche from the other draftees in his year. Yeah, it's kind of interesting how on profile he's getting put across the NBA. I know part of it is his skin color, but also, he is a very marketable star in certain ways. His personality and his goofiness really go towards this. And he's not afraid of taking a bag from anybody. I mean, I think he will sell whatever. This man is not above doing commercials or ads for people. He will sell out like that. And that will benefit him in this too. They want to make him a young face across the league in certain ways. Well, they're going to have to show him and Scottie from up north. That's what I'm saying. Scottie is a kind of star like this also. Well, if these guys become a duo and they become very popular around the league, yeah, they might have to put the Raptors on more on blast on the stateside, just because these dudes will help them make money. And that's all that really matters in the end of it is Scottie and Gradey are attractive young men that make money for advertising and people want to buy whatever they're buying. Well, the U.S. will put them on blast more down south. I think that Cool Cat's exactly right. Infamous is saying, does anyone have a cargo van that can move 2 couches from Brampton to Scarborough? Would really appreciate the help. Oh, wow. I'm trying to think. I have no vehicles myself. If I had a vehicle, I would probably try and help you. Well, Raptor Freaks, can anybody help Infamous today as far as he's got 2 couches he's got to get from Brampton to Scarborough across the 416? So one quick shot across 401 real quick with some sort of vehicle. Wayne's saying the operative word here is execution. Fiercely saying on Instagram, lots of followers and it keeps growing. Okay, so you're talking about his Gradey's Instagram account has booming because he's getting a lot of followers and he's been posting a lot more too. This is what happens. Dennis has got the Lakers Nation following him already. They love him. Well, he's getting Raptors Nation following him all of a sudden. And this is what happens. You come to the Raptors, you see an uptick on your social media numbers. I'm sure that Dennis is very much smiling with how many people are joining his YouTube channels and also his other Instagram and all kinds of other stuff. This is what happens. You become a Raptor, you get a social media boost. You do for sure, because Raptors fans want to know what's going on, just like the Raptor Freaks do. That's right. All right, we're at the end of the comments. Let me just go over real quick a little recap for today. We're talking about point guards for the Raptors today. I think that it's not really unanimous in any kind of way. We all kind of see it in different alternatives in different ways, kind of sussing out the 5 likely candidates. In some ways, I really do think that Dennis is going to be starting at point guard for the start of the year, but that may not be the same at maybe a month or 2 into the season. That, maybe that he does try different guys. It's very hard to speculate without knowing anything about Darko as a coach. So it's going to be very interesting to see which one of the options he chooses. But we've kind of gone over them today to really kind of say what the differences are. Dennis gives you a certain thing. Jeff gives you a certain thing. Markquis gives you a certain thing. Malachi gives you a certain thing. And then, of course, Scottie playing as the point guard can give you a certain thing also. There's pros and cons to all of the options. And we'll just have to see what Darko values and what he decides. I'm sure nothing's going to be set in stone, and he's going to be very flexible to find what works the best. But it's great that we have different looks and some flexibility with this since Fred's left. And now we do have a couple different people. You can do it very, very differently. And I think it will be matchup oriented and maybe it's specific team oriented depending on the night who we're playing. So, yeah. All right, let's see. Fiercely saying, as a Raptor, you have the country cheering for you, Canada, not only a specific city. Yeah. There's people from Halifax to Vancouver that will add and follow Gradey Dick all of a sudden, just out of the blue. And there's a huge, huge market here. And it's really good for people like Gradey who like to push products. Trust me. Yeah. Monique, thank you. W Stream Lex, keep at it always. Thank you, Monique, from the bottom of my heart. I appreciate you so much, Monique. Wayne saying execution for Malachi to perform what he's been mentored. Time to execute. Yeah, Wayne, get that big axe and the black hood and put it on Mr. Flynn. He's coming out to execute. I love it. I love it, Wayne Strainer. Good stuff. All right, y'all. Thanks for watching me today. Please like, comment, subscribe, and share. And I'll be back tomorrow for a Friday Freakout. We'll see what's going on. Tom saying mentorship is over. Game on for sure. That's right, Grasshopper. It's time for you to come on and take the master on. You're going to get to play Fred when he's in a Rockets jersey. You can get to play Lowry in a Heat jersey, I think. So, Malachi, let's show if Grasshopper is ready to beat the Masters. That's what I want to see this year. Let's execute the Masters, Mr. Van Vliet and Mr. Lowry and all the other guys who taught you from before. Let's go. Exactly right, Tom, dude. Let's go, Raptors!